of mine. You found someone new, but I can't change my love the way that you do.
This is the story of a lost neighborhood and of its people who did not want to go.
I don't want no money. I want my home. The old man is old. See how the old man is old? No more. That's enough. I don't want to get out. I said to my two daughters, they don't want to get out too because they spend a lot of money. Plenty of money they spend in this place. We not get none to nobody. Never.
Hi, welcome to the West End Video Newsletter. This is, tonight we're going to do a show on electric deregulation. But first I want to show you our latest newsletter, because that's what we're all about. We come out quarterly, and we just put this one out. And we're looking for funds, so if anybody wants to donate to the West Ender newsletter, it says, is the end there? And we need a few more dollars to keep going. So we're at P.O. Box 413, Somerville, Mass. It's called the West Ender. Anybody that wants to donate to help the newsletter and the video newsletter going, just send it in. We'll take it and we'll run with it and have a party. But that being said, tonight's show is on electric deregulation, and tonight we have Ed Kelley and Mary Lampert. Ed is Assistant Director of the Campaign for Fair Electric Rates, and Mary is the Director of the Mass Citizens for Safe Energy. I guess some of you probably really don't know, because this is, you talk to people and they don't understand what electric deregulation means. So tonight's show, there's a question going on the ballot in November. Tonight's show, we're going to try to clear up some of the myths and some of the controversy about this question. And I guess I don't know which one of you two are going to answer this, but what's going on with electric deregulation, and why is it so bad?
Last fall, the legislature was considering deregulating electricity, and what that meant was they were going to separate out generation from everything else, and you could, in theory, buy your electricity from a variety of different sources. And that was viewed as a possible way to save money for consumers. Unfortunately, the utilities got a hold of this, and they spent $2 million lobbying the legislature, and they ended up passing a deregulation bill that's great for them, bad for consumers, bad for the environment. And so we put together a referendum that's going to be on the ballot this November, question 4, and we're trying to repeal this, so we're urging people to vote no, and tell the legislature to go back and pass a new law that's good for consumers, good for the environment, and not as just a sweetheart deal for the utilities.
Oh, now there's a bailout coming with this. We have to pay for their stranded costs.
Right, right. We want to show you a chart here we brought with us.
Okay.
And essentially this shows the reasons why we think that this bill is bad for consumers and the environment. And one of the things is there's a huge bailout for the utilities.
Right.
About 10 to $12 billion, which we brought along a present here,
It's
which
a gift.
A gift for
A
the
gift.
utilities.
From you to the electric industry.
Right.
And Mary's going to tell a little bit about what consists of the bailout.
Yeah, what the bailout is 10 to $12 billion that we will be giving as consumers to the electric industry to pay for all their bad decisions.
Right.
Their foolish investments in expensive nuclear power plants, their agreements to buy electricity from suppliers at highly inflated rates, their brilliant and less than brilliant decisions. As you might remember, when the airlines deregulated, when the telephones did, you didn't pay for their mistakes. I mean, this is a sweetheart deal which will cost every household $3,000. That's going to be your share of your hard-earned money. Have you gotten a thank you for this gift? What we want to do is have you vote no on 4 to get rid of the gift and for you to get a fair shake at your rates that you were promised. And maybe Ed would like to talk about this hoax where they are promising
10%.
that you are going to get 10 to 15% savings on your bill, which is a pile of baloney. Do you want to shed some light on that?
Sure. The utilities are saying there's a guaranteed rate cut in this deal.
Right.
Now, what it really is that you get a rate cut now, you pay for it later. You know, so it's really a deferral. They have a mechanism by if they lose any money giving you the rate cut now,
Right.
they carry it on their books with interest and charge it back to you in the future. So, you know, it's sort of like if you went to Kmart, you saw a shirt on sale for 10% off, and you bought it, thought this was a good deal. You took it home, you opened it up, and you found a little note inside that said, Kmart may be sending you an extra bill in the future with interest to pay for this discount now.
Right.
You'd say that's not a discount, that's a fraud.
Right.
And that's what's happening here. So that's why we say that the first point here is the utilities get billions,
Right.
we get peanuts.
I don't even think they want to give us peanuts. but-
Well,
personally, but they call that stranded cost, isn't that what the word they use? I'm just saying that so that
Right.
so that the people
So
out there
their
when they read
mistakes,
read
their
this,
their mortgages,
Right.
their plant balances,
right.
their debts are called stranded costs. Don't you wish the taxpayers in your town would pay your mortgage?
Well, my stranded costs are my master charge.
Kids' tuitions, hey, load it on.
Will the state pay for my stranded costs?
no,
or-
well, that's the thing. See, the thing is that in every other industry that's deregulated,
Right.
trucking, airlines, if you got a good deal after deregulation of the airlines, and you were going to go to Florida for $99
Right.
because you used to pay $300,
Right.
and you're out there on the airport gate to get on your airplane, all of a sudden the old airline that had the old inefficient planes comes running up and says, you know, pay us off before you fly to Florida, pay us off for our old airplanes. That's sort of like what's happening in
Well,
this
you
bill.
know, another thing I think about it is we've already paid once for their mistakes.
Right.
Because in Massachusetts, we have had some of the highest electric rates historically in the whole
generations.
country. And so then we were supposed to fix it. But instead of fixing it, we get charged a second time for their mistakes. Doesn't make any sense.
There's also another joiner on that 10% that if you move from one house to another house, I mean, it doesn't take a year to do it, but if you, like, say I move from Highland Ave to Cutter Ave or, you know, around the corner, I lose the 10% anyway, right?
Well, what happens is if you move from one utility service area
Oh,
to
okay.
another, in other words, if you moved from Somerville to Cambridge, so you moved to a new company,
Cambridge,
then
yeah.
you would lose that standard offer, which is the way they give you the discount.
Right.
And that's one, you know, they say it's a guaranteed discount, but there's all these different ways by which it's not guaranteed, and that's one example of it.
Yeah, well, Ralph Nader called this the biggest rip-off in the history of Massachusetts. I mean, I assume you people agree to that.
Ralph Nader is, has looked at this thing and said, this is a scam on customers, and that's why we're really out here opposing it. And one of the things that people haven't really focused on that much is that this is going to cost jobs in Massachusetts as well.
I believe that. I believe, like I think we were talking earlier, and one of the reasons Edison took the lines instead of the plants was that they want to be a communications company. They've teamed up with RCN, and here in Somerville and other areas where Edison and RCN teamed up, they're running wires all over the place because they're going to have phone companies and they're going to have everything else going through that. So they're more interested in being a communications company, I think, at this point, than they are actually in producing electricity or having anything to do with electricity. I think you'll find electricity is going to be a really minimal part of their business. And usually when you have something that's a minimal part of their business, people don't take care of it because they're usually not making a lot of money on it.
But we're going to be financing all these new things they go into. The 10 to $12 billion we're handing them is what they're using to go into all these other businesses.
But you know, you just brought up a very interesting point, that they will not be taking care
Right.
of the transmission lines. So this leads into another reason you should vote no on 4, because it is going to have a very negative effect on reliability of service. Say what you want about a regulated electric market, but at least it provided pretty reliable service over the years. Now with competition, if one company has an outage and it's competing with another company, what motivation would they have to help them out?
Exactly.
Who's going to be maintaining the transmission lines? Okay? And these questions were not solved in the legislature's rush to get this bill through before the public figured it out. And so, it's going to be cold outside. It's going to be a long, cold, perhaps dark winter. And one thing we need is reliable electric service. And this is what the bill does not provide, and a good reason to vote one more, no on for it.
And I think I've said this before, and I'll say it again because I think it hits the heart, is that anybody I've talked to and I've mentioned that they're no longer going to be generating and transmitting, they're going to be putting a middleman into this, and no business I've ever heard of has ever put a middleman into a business and save money. It just doesn't happen because everybody has to pay production costs, everybody has to pay for secretaries. When they're duplicating everything down the line, somebody's going to have to pay for that. Unfortunately, I think that's going to be us.
Well, the thing is that, when they have a free market in electricity, who's going to get to buy electricity from in this free market? It's going to be the biggest companies, the biggest institutional purchasers. And so there's an expression, big dogs eat first. Well, that's what we're going to see here. The big dogs are getting, any deals that are out there, the big dogs are going to get them. Small business and residential customers are going to get what's left. And that's what this is going to look like.
Well, that's true now because right now there are the large electric companies have access to certain deals, whereas the residential companies only have whoever they were plugged into when all this started.
Right.
So other people the big businesses have been shopping around and been working it. To them, deregulation is probably a good show.
And then the little guys pay, again, twice.
Always.
They pay higher bills for their own service, but they're also paying to help bail out the big guys.
One other question is, will it bring jobs? Will it help the economy? What will happen when this comes in?
We did some studies on this and ran some economic models of what this bill was going to do. And essentially what you're doing is taking $10 to $12 billion and shipping a lot of it out of the state to out-of-state stockholders and bondholders, et cetera. So jobs that could have been created in Massachusetts, good jobs, are going to be lost because the capital that would have supported those jobs is being sent elsewhere. And there's no reason why we should be basically decimating our economy to help some out-of-state stockholders that made mistakes in the first place and invested in some stupid investments in the first place. We're going to be bailing them out and costing us jobs here. So that's really stupid.
Yeah, actually, some of these models came up with 25,000 jobs.
Is that?
Yes. 25,000 jobs per year can be lost in Massachusetts.
Wow.
Which that's a lot of jobs. And so they're, not only fleecing your wallet, losing your shirt, but you're losing your job too.
Yeah, and I got on board with this a while back, and I thought it was a ripoff then. I still think it's a ripoff. It just doesn't seem like the public is catching fire. It doesn't seem like it's taking off with the public. They seem to think, and unfortunately, the electric company's going, we're going to give you 10%, and they're running with it. Matter of fact, I've heard people that, why are you against 10%? They argue with you. And,
well, I think there's just two answers. The first answer is, if you get the 10% discount now, don't spend that money. The Wall Street Journal actually wrote an article said, don't spend your discount now, because you're going to have to pay it back with interest in the future. That's the first thing. The other thing is, with this bailout, take $30 out of your pocket, which is the monthly cost of this bailout. Put it on the table and think about that. Do I want to send it to my electric company to bail them out, or do I want to take myself out to dinner? It's a very clear choice. Most people would, if you put it that way, would say, let's go out to dinner.
Yeah, and then I think also, which we want, if it had been a fair deal, instead of bailing them out 100%, then you could have guaranteed real savings of at least 30%, if there had been any fairness. Or if the public interest had been served.
And I want to bring that point up here right now, because a lot of people, when I start talking about the electric deregulation, they think you're against electric deregulation. And all three of us, we've all been involved with this. We are not against electric deregulation. I want to make that very clear. We're not against electric deregulation. We're against the bill and the form of electric deregulation that is being handed to us right now. I mean, that's the only thing. There can be very good bills that will handle electric deregulation if they really wanted to, but this one just seems to be, the magic words here seem to be stranded costs, because we're going to be paying for the electric companies' mistakes of the past.
Yeah, well, I'd say bailout, rip-off, corporate welfare.
That's right.
Could be some other synonyms I could come up with. And what we're looking for, the public had been left out of the conversation. And it's time now for the public to get in the conversation, so everybody's interest. And one interest that we haven't discussed is a very important interest of health. I brought my child's inhaler here. How many mothers out there are appalled at how many inhalers are at the playground, are at the playing fields, are in the lunch boxes? We all know that pollution translates into sickness, into respiratory diseases, into premature deaths, and the list goes on and on. Now, 50% of the pollution in Massachusetts comes from our own dirty power plants. It doesn't all come from the Midwest. Half comes from our own. And so it's important to understand that a deregulation bill should have, and this one doesn't, a requirement that the power plants, the old dirty power plants, clean up their act, that their emission standards have to meet the same tough standards that new power plants do. The bill fails to do that. And we just had an example in the paper today talking about the Brayton power plant down in Somerset that is responsible for half of that pollution. It's now going to be bought by a California company to have a gas plant, which is a lot cleaner. Oh, great. But what they fail to tell you is they're going to keep all the dirty plants going. The same with the Mystic. It's not quite as bad. They're going to put a new gas plant, which is a lot cleaner, but they're going to run the dirty plants that sickens the neighborhood in the summertime. So we missed the opportunity to help clean up the air, and as importantly, there is no serious encouragement for clean generators such as solar, wind, for conservation measures. A few crumbs were thrown for those clean services, but certainly not enough. And the last damaging part to the environment is the bill actually not only bails out nuclear power plants, but subsidizes their ongoing operations. Have you heard of anything more foolish in your life? No question. Nuclear power plants like the Pilgrim nuclear power plant that happens to be in my neighborhood is the most expensive way to generate electricity. It produces the most poisonous waste known to mankind. We have no place to put it, right? And the power plant, Pilgrim, and the others in New England are old. They are cutting costs in anticipation of deregulation. Staff's down. They've aged more rapidly. Accidents happen. We had 3 Mile Island. So if we did not subsidize the nuclear power plant in Massachusetts and others in our region, they couldn't compete and they'd close shop. And we would be healthier and safer citizens and have cheaper electric rates. So along with the gift, vote no on 4, and maybe you can throw away your inhalers.
I would also like to get down to the referendum question, okay? And I think that's probably important because a lot of people, when we talk stranded costs, they have it written stranded costs. They have it. Could you explain it in plain language, who they should vote for? I mean, if they, I forgot exactly how the question is written.
The way the bill is the question is written is it says, do you favor or the passage of this bill that was passed by the legislature in 1997? And so if you like the idea of bailing out your utilities and like the idea of still having your kids breathe with inhalers, you should vote yes on 4. But if you want to put the money in your pocket, save jobs, and want to have a real rate reduction, you should vote no on 4, send it back to the legislature and say, look, you screwed up the first time, the second time do it right. And that's really, it's a 2-stage process. Vote no on 4 in November, then send it back to the legislature, say we rejected the first try, do it right the second try.
Yeah, well, and so what it does, we said a few minutes ago that the public have been left out of the conversation. So therefore, it was the big electric companies that got what they wanted. And so this is an opportunity for the public to vote. You can play legislator and you can say, this is a bad deal, no, for these various reasons. Let's do it again. and let's do it so we get something out of this.
Yeah, I guess the whole question of this is now how it runs with the public, and I don't see it really picking up. So is there something we can say that will make the public
well, I think
grab hold of this?
I think
more
the
than
biggest thing for the public in some ways is not even just the money involved, but the deceptive way that the utilities and their allies have been running this campaign, telling people there's a guaranteed rate cut
Right.
when that's a fraud, telling people there's real competition when there's none for residential and small business customers. People don't like to be lied to.
Right.
So if you're fed up with being lied to by big companies and politicians, this is a good chance to show your irritation by voting no. I think the more we can get that kind of response out by people, by saying, look, it's time to tell the truth to people and let people make their decision based on truth. But we're being lied to. They have huge amounts of money to spend in this campaign. We're telling the truth, and the truth is gradually getting out. The more we can get the truth out about this law, the more people hate it.
Yeah, well, that's the hardest part.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is it
It
getting
is.
it out?
Yeah.
But I think it's positive. It's we're all so tired of money in politics. Big money, spending more money for lobbyists and getting their money's worth. I think this is an opportunity to say we have got the power. You know, you can vote, you can do something, vote no on for, and take back democracy in a sense.
What is the history of these ballot questions?
Well, usually the side with big money tends to win. Well, that's not a big surprise, you know. But I think that there are a lot of people who are just really, I think the tide is turning in many ways in this state and in this country, that people are sick and tired of big money dominating politics. And you're hearing a lot of talk about campaign finance reform and scandals with people donating money to campaign. People are sick and tired of it. And here's a chance for people to say, we want a different way to operate here. Even if, you know, so there may be somebody who may even think the bill is not so bad, but is sick and tired of having something shoved through by big money interests.
You know what I find sort of strange with this particular campaign is that Jim Browdy is on board and Barbara Anderson is on board.
That's right.
I was just going to say that it is not a partisan issue. If you have Jim Browdy and Barbara Anderson, it must be a bad bill.
Exactly, because neither one of them really think much of it.
And you know, if you listen to people, people are concerned about higher taxes. They're concerned about being ripped off. They're concerned about their dollar not going as far as it should. They're concerned that their wages have not kept up with inflation. So $3,000 gift to stockholders in big companies is serious business. It should not be. It should be the other way around. You know, not the reverse Robin Hood.
You know, one thing that was particularly scandalous, Senator John O'Brien was the Senate chair of the legislative committee dealing with deregulation. Supposedly he was out there fighting for our interests. Well, the ink was barely dry on the deregulation bill when he went to work as a vice president of Scythe Energies, which just bought all the power plants from Boston Edison. If he was on our side, what's he doing working for the utilities?
Well, I know what that reminded me of. Every Christmas, we always put milk and cookies out for Santa. Sometimes a big snifter of brandy. That's what I think this is.
It's well, do you have any other comments about this, or would you like to say any other stuff on this bill? Or
well,
do you have any other points you'd like to?
Well, I just, you know, it seems like a complicated issue, but it really isn't. Again, emphasize, vote no on for. Why? Because the bill gave utilities billions. We got peanuts. We got to give them $10 to $12 billion. And for that, what did we get? We got not only fleeced, but we got to have fewer jobs, less reliable electric service, more pollution, What kind of a deal is that? You know, so it is time to take the power back, make sure you vote, and make sure you take the grassroots approach, which is to talk to other people and think, look at your bill and say, whoa, this doesn't make any sense. I'm going to talk to people and we're going to go vote. I know industry has spent millions. What an investment. They got billions back. Wouldn't you like an investment like that?
I love
Spend a couple of million, get 12 billion?
I think part of the problem is the language they use, and that it throws everybody off.
Sure. But you know, a rule of thumb that most people follow is if you don't fully understand something on the ballot, they're probably trying to really run something by you that's going to be bad for you, so
right.
vote no. And the other thing we would encourage is for people to call us at 441-0958, extension 5, and volunteer, because we need volunteer power.
Certainly
The other
do.
side has all the money.
That's
we need
right.
some volunteers. We'd love to have people help us on this.
You know, and it's something as simple as slapping a bumper sticker on your car or on your T-shirt at a game, you know, or sending a dear friend card, holding a sign at Election Day, or just the old word of mouth. You talk to 5 friends.
You have a website too, don't you?
That we do. It's very simple and very good. www.stopthebailout.com. And in that website, you'll be able to click on and how you can help, click on to a series of news articles, everything you'd ever want to know about electric deregulation.
And we come back to
We just go through the basic things of why
Right.
we're against this bill.
Okay.
People should vote no on 4 because utilities get billions, we get peanuts. Utilities get billions, we get fewer jobs. Utilities get billions, we get less reliable service. And utilities get billions, we get pollution. Vote no on 4.
That's right. And I urge all of you to go out and vote no on 4. I personally am. I know they are. Ralph Nader is. Of course, some people will vote the other way for whenever they hear Ralph Nader.
And Barbara Anderson. So either way.
Barbara Anderson's on this side, so it's a bad bill. It shouldn't be passed, and we should fight it all the way. And I know we will. You know, and we're not doing it for ourselves, because whatever we do for ourselves will also favor the general public.
And this is not only a money issue, but it is also a public health and safety issue when you look at allowing the worst polluting plants in the state to continue belching out these soot and particulates. It truly is making people sick. It's not maybe, it is making people sick and threatening health and safety by having these old nukes being subsidized, chugging along. Those are very serious issues.
And it will cost you money eventually. You realize that. You may think you're going to save, but it will cost you money eventually. That's the way it works. The big business usually doesn't come down and get very paternalistic with us. And when they're giving away 10%, it's got to be smoke and mirrors.
Well, if it was such a bad deal for the big electric companies, why were they pumping so much money into lobbyists to get the bill passed? I figured that went out.
It passed in quite fast
Oh, it
fashion.
passed in one day.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing is that this 10% discount that people are going to get, they're going to pay it back later. The only people who should vote for the 10% discount are people who think they're going to die in a year. Because maybe for them it's a good deal. But if you're going to be around in the future, you're going to pay it back with interest.
And
So
it's the near future, too.
So if you're going to die in a year, vote yes. If not, vote no. And I guess with that, we're going to have to wrap up the show and see you at the next. And thank you for coming. I
Oh,
appreciate
thanks
it.
for having us.
And see you at the next West End Video Newsletter.